Fellas, it's that time of year again. It's the end of December and you feel like you need a New Year resolution or else you're going nowhere in life. Well, first of all, what if I told you that New Year's resolutions are just stupid? And second, how about I show you how I set goals for the New Year's that aren't New Year's resolutions? Also, I know that setting goals is basically setting a New Year resolution, but I'm going to show you how I set goals that are properly defined so you don't just give up in the first 2 weeks and you actually make some progress. Okay, let's get to the meat. How do I actually set goals? If you feel like you're just stuck on setting goals and you don't know what you actually want to accomplish in a given year, let's try breaking it up into categories. So typical categories for me would be something like physical health, finances, YouTube, business. These are kind of things that I just want to get going and I want to make progress in, and these ideally should be pretty similar to what you want to do too. And then I do also have a couple other goals that I do keep private. I don't share those are just more for things that I want to do and I kind of want to prove to myself, and those are just the categories. I'm not going to share with you the actual goals that I set just because I feel like when you share your goals, it's almost like celebrating early, and it gives you the satisfaction of completing the goal when you actually haven't done it. So it's almost like you're getting the dopamine hit for not actually doing the work. And then your mind is like, oh, well, got the dopamine. We're good now, bro. We did it. It's just unearned confidence. And you don't want that right now. Back to setting goals. Here is a tip if you don't know how to choose a goal. Just think about something that's really bothering you. Obviously, there's something in your life that you're not happy with and you want to fix it. That's a pretty good starting point, and that's usually how I start off with something. So for example, let's say that you drink too much soda. You're not happy with how much soda you consume. You're drinking like 6 times a week, like, crazy shit like that, right? Well, first I would start with knowing exactly how much you actually drink, and then you add it up. So for example, I said, what if you're smashing like 6 sodas in a week and you do that every single week for the whole year? I know this is kind of an extreme example, but just hang on. Then you would be drinking soda 312 times out of 365 times in a given year. That's a lot. So you might be thinking, okay, well, how would I just set a goal? No more soda. I'm not going to drink any soda for the next year. No. Don't do that. I know you were thinking that. That's exactly how you set yourself up for failure, and that's not the goal here. You need to be gradual, especially if you're starting in a really rough spot. You need momentum. So what if we brought down that 312 days of soda down to 150 days of soda? That's still a lot of soda, but let's run the numbers. Where did this math come from? So that means instead of not drinking soda 53 days in a given year, you would not be drinking soda for 215 days in a year. That's a massive improvement, and you can still enjoy soda. Also, side note, if you're like trying to think of a goal and you don't know how hard to make it, well, if you find your goal is too easy, just adjust it, make it harder. And if you find that your goal is too hard, maybe you realize like, okay, I'm a little too ambitious. Okay, maybe dial it back just slightly, but be careful with this. It's really easy to just be lazy here and just say, you know what? I'm just gonna like bring it halfway. No. You gotta be strict with yourself. You set the goal because you knew you could make it work. Find a way. What I'm trying to say is these goals are not set in stone. You can make adjustments. I've adjusted my goals midway through the year. It's not like you're locked into the goals that you set 6 months ago. I mean, 6 months is a long time. You could be in a whole different place right now. I had to adjust some of my goals when I moved into my new house. It's just, I wasn't expecting to buy a home this year. But back to the soda example just real quick. This type of approach when it comes to setting goals is exactly how you can make it realistic, but you can still enjoy yourself from time to time and not go crazily, insanely overboard with like locking yourself down and completely restricting everything you do. The key here is just being realistic. Also, here's an important thing when it comes to setting goals too. Don't set too many goals either. I know you're going to have that 3 a.m. energy when you're setting your goals and you're going to be like, I want to do this and this and this, but you have to control yourself and just don't set too many goals. Don't think, oh, I have the whole year so I can do so much. But think about it. If you set 20 goals, can you realistically work on all 20 goals almost every single day and make progress? Probably not, unless these goals are tiny. But if they are, then they shouldn't be yearly goals. These goals are ideally something that you can focus on almost every single day and make progress towards, and to me, that's what makes a good yearly goal. Like the soda example, this is something that you can focus on every single day. You have the choice to not drink a soda. So that right there, if you just don't drink a soda, that's progress. I would rather set 5 or 6 really ambitious goals than set like 20 goals that just like are so all over the place that you don't really even care about. And that's another thing too, is you just don't want to be afraid of setting harder goals. If your goals scare you, that's good. If your goals don't scare you, they're probably too easy. Now, of course, if you're down bad, don't set really hard goals. You need momentum. And back to the soda example, well, you're not trying to just cut out soda fully, you're just trying to reduce heavily, but then you're not reducing too much that you can still build momentum. And then once you have the momentum, you can go harder. Basically, if you can take your goals and make progress on them almost every single day, then I would say it's a good goal. Okay, so now that you know how I set goals, how do I make sure that they're attainable? How do I stay on track and make sure that I actually complete them? Well, like I mentioned in the last point, I like to make goals that ideally I can work on every single day. And if I can work on them every day, well then staying on track becomes a lot easier. And another way I like to remind myself of what my goals are every day is I just read over my goals every single morning. Seriously, I just read them over. The reason I like to write them down in the Notes app is because I can look it over on all my devices and it's always available to me. And I'm already in the Apple ecosystem, so I can view from my phone, my computer, anywhere. So I really don't have an excuse for not reading my goals over every single day. And if you're not reviewing your goals every day, I think that's a big problem too, because it's so easy to just forget what your goals are. There's been a lot of times I wanted to do something, but I just forgot to do it. And that's no good. Okay, so I briefly mentioned breaking up your goals into chunks such as months or even weeks, but what I like to do is set monthly goals which typically are a subset of my yearly goals. And then when I create these monthly goals, I also read them over every single morning. Like the yearly goals, I try not to set too many and I limit myself to 6 goals per month. I would say about half of them are related to my yearly goals and then the other half are just things that I want to do that month. Like maybe for relationships, I want to reach out to X amount of people this month that I haven't reached out to in a long time. By the way, let's just take a pause. You should reach out to somebody that you haven't reached out to in a long time. I actually made a video about this, about reaching out, and I know this is very off topic, but it also could make for a good monthly goal, so it's actually on topic. Especially around the holidays, I feel like it's a good time to just reach out to somebody that you've been meaning to reach out to, and I think my other reach out video does it justice, but anyways, back to the video. But also on top of the yearly and monthly goals, I also just have like a list of things that I read over every single morning, which is also part of that same note on top of the yearly and monthly goals. And really these things just kind of act like a little boost of motivation. So especially on the days where, you know, I'm feeling a little low energy, then they can help lift me up a little bit. And you know, you could call them affirmations if you will, but first I have the remember section. So this is where I just write down little reminders or sayings that I really enjoy. And I think my top 3 are nothing great in life comes easy, which is a reminder that if you want anything good to happen in your life, it's not going to come easy. I also have one step at a time, which is also a reminder that things don't just happen overnight, but rather you have to take things one step at a time if you want to achieve something big. Big things don't just happen. They happen through one step at a time. And I also have written down, do what excites. And if you know who Kelly Wakas is, then this one's pretty self-explanatory, but to me, it's just a reminder to do something that's exciting every day and something that's out of my comfort zone. Really, it's all about doing what excites. And then next is a recap of how far I've come, also known as a section where I write down everything that happened last year that was good. This is just a small reminder of how much progress that I've actually made in life, especially in the last year. And it's easy to forget how much you've done. So that's why I like to take a moment to just recap, because sometimes it's easy to forget about your accomplishments. But then on top of that, I also have another section where I write down things that didn't go as well as I would have liked. This is more of a reminder to help me do better today and just to see what didn't go well so that I can focus on not doing that. For example, one thing that didn't go well for me last year was I spent a little bit too much time scrolling on YouTube and Reddit and, you know, just scrolling. Just mindless scrolling that I don't like. It just feels like a big waste of time. So this year I decided to put a blocker on those apps on my phone. Now, yeah, it doesn't stop scrolling altogether. It's not like I'm just magically cured, but it makes me way more conscious of when I'm scrolling. And it also kind of puts time limits on the apps too, which is good. So maybe I want to scroll for like 10, 15 minutes. Well, then it just lets me scroll for 15 minutes. And after that, it just kicks me out. And yes, I know I can just go around it, but honestly, the little resistance is all I needed. And now my mindless scrolling has been significantly reduced. And now that we're actually at the end of the year, I can now happily say that a lot of things that went bad in 2023 which just went so much better this year, and I'm happy about that. Another reason why I like writing this down is I can see if I actually improved or not. And then next on that note is the actual yearly goals. Now, I already talked about this in depth, but you got to remind yourself what your goals actually are. Like I mentioned, it's really easy to just forget, and then you don't make progress, not because you just didn't make progress, but because you just forgot to make progress. And honestly, that's like a pretty bad excuse, but it happens. So at least for me, I find that rereading my goals every single morning just helps remind me and puts me in the right mindset to make progress. And it just helps me plan my day in a way that I can actually make some actions towards my goals. And with these little actions that I can take every day, well, it's just like what I said earlier, one step at a time. That's how you get to where you want to go. And then finally, on the bottom of that notes is the monthly accountability. Again, I already mentioned this, it's usually just a subset of my yearly goals. But I'll give you an example of breaking down a yearly goal into a monthly goal. Let's say you have a goal to make 100 YouTube videos in 1 year. If you look at it at face value, 100 videos is a lot of YouTube videos. But what if you could break that down to 8 to 9 videos per month? Or maybe even 2 to 3 videos per week? I mean, 2 or 3 videos a week is not that hard, especially if you make easy to make videos, right? But that's roughly the same as 100 videos a year. It's the same goal, but just reframed in a way that is less scary. It just makes goals seem more manageable, which is what you're looking for here. And reading over this note that I just mentioned only takes about a couple minutes every morning, and it's so good. It's way better than scrolling on social media first thing in the morning. Now, obviously, you don't want to go into too much depth when you're writing this whole note if you decide to do it, because, well, if you're going to read this every single morning, you want to make sure that it's easy to read, it's easy to digest. If you write like a paragraph, like, are you really going to read that paragraph every single morning? Maybe you will, but I feel like most people won't. I wouldn't. But yeah, just keep it short and sweet. And if you just keep rereading this over and over again, you'll eventually just find yourself thinking about that note and all the things that you mentioned. And at least for me, I find myself that I'm constantly thinking about what's in that note just because I've read it so many times now. But if you're thinking about it, well, then you're thinking about the goal, which makes you think about how do I get to that goal? And then you think about the action, and then that's how you get in there. That's how you make the progress. Isn't that the whole point of setting goals? So you can make progress? Okay, so these hard goals are cool and all, and we like to set really ambitious goals, which I do encourage, but what if you fall short on these goals? And believe me, you won't always achieve them. You will fall short on your goals sometime. And to be fully honest, I rarely finish my yearly goals fully. Even for my 2024 goals, I only achieved 3 out of 6 of them. I did get close to finishing 5 out of 6, but I fell a little short. But hey, let's talk about it. So I like to set my bar really high because 1, I've been doing this for years, so I've already built that momentum up that I was talking about earlier. And 2, I'm pretty confident that I can achieve my yearly goals or at least get really close, which is how I kind of have an idea of what I should set my goals at. But then also they're not too easy where I do fail them from time to time because I make really tough goals. But the number one thing is if you fall short on your goal, do not beat yourself up. That is like key. Please, you're just gonna make yourself feel worse and you're hurting no one but yourself. Also, have you noticed that I don't like to use the word failure, but rather you fell short on or you didn't quite get there? It's because it's not a failure. At least I wouldn't call it that. Let's reframe the situation a little bit to prove that falling short is not a failure. Instead of saying, oh man, I failed that goal, what if you said instead, wow, I actually did a lot more than I thought. This is a reminder that you didn't fail your goal, but instead you actually made a lot more progress in something that you probably wouldn't have otherwise. Let's use an example of income, because income goal is probably a pretty common one that you're gonna set and I've set myself, but let's talk about it. Let's say you set a goal to make 200K this year, but in this year, you only, and I'm saying only with heavy quotes, brought in 150K. Would you call that a failure? Well, shit, man, you brought in 150K when last year you brought in, let's say, 75K. You doubled your income. That's still a win. And guess what? You still have next year to try and do better. Maybe you can finally hit that 200K goal, right? Just because you didn't hit your goal this year doesn't mean you can't carry it on to the next year and potentially even do better. But just because you can push something to next year doesn't mean that you should be doing that all the time. Don't make it a habit, okay? That's like the equivalent of saying, oh, I won't do it today, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. You know that's bullshit. You know that's not going to happen. Saying I'm going to do it tomorrow, that's a goddamn lie. But let me give you a personal example from one of my yearly goals this year that I actually ended up failing. I haven't revealed this to anybody, especially on here on YouTube or even just like my friends or anything, but I had a sub goal this year of hitting 750 subs by the end of this year. I started the year with 360 subs and now I'm at like 620, 630. Just look at my sub count right now, and I can assure you it's not going to be 750. But despite falling short on this goal, this was still one of the best years of YouTube that I've ever had in my 4 years of posting on this channel. I damn near doubled my sub count in 1 year, and yes, I did set very ambitious goals that I was scared that I wasn't gonna hit it, and like I was like, oh my god, like how am I gonna get 750 subs? But I found a way to at least get a lot more subs than I'm used to. And yeah, I didn't achieve it, but I'm not sad about that. Now, if you had an all or nothing mindset, you'd be thinking, oh, didn't hit 750 subs. Like, that sucks. I guess I'm a failure because I didn't hit what I wanted. So no, don't do that. With that mindset, yeah, that'd be a failure. But I just don't see it that way, and that's why I'm not demotivated, and that's why I want to keep going. Also, I hope when you're checking my sub count, it increased by 1 because you hit the sub button. Just saying, drop a like and a sub. So remember, falling short on your goals is not a bad thing. It's actually going to be way more common than you think, especially if you're setting ambitious goals. You have to remember that you still did a lot, and just because you fell short on a goal doesn't mean it's over. You still have next year to lock in and get what you want, and that's the beautiful part. You can just try again next time. Now let's make this next year the best year yet. Let's set some crazy ass goals, and also while you're at it,
Drop a like and a sub.